This is the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast, session number 352. Jessi McAnelly on Jumpstarting Success.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
There's a bit of a funny story behind this conversation that you're about to listen to, because I've actually only known Jessi McAnelly for a couple of months now, and it comes around to the program that I offer, Hypnotic Business Systems, which is also a full online community. So it's not just the video training of what I teach, it's also an international community of people around the world who are there supporting you and helping you grow your business as well. You can learn more at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. So Jessi joined this program, and I didn't quite know this at the time that she joined. It was then by way of the interactions with her in the group that I then soon realized at the time of this discovery, she was only in hypnosis for like 3 or 4 months, which some people would look at as a bit of a setback, but this is what you're going to hear in this conversation. She dove in head first. She made it work. She got started. And as a result, she's got a flow of clients that are coming in. And I call this out respectfully because there's people that you might know in our community that are full-time working professionals who were suddenly asking, let me use the word from the internet, the newbie, how are you getting these clients? And that's why I reached out to Jessi, and this is this conversation you're about to hear. Though this is not just a story about jumpstarting success, though we did title this episode Jumpstarting Success. What you're going to hear is how a career as a freelance transcriptionist, by a bit of a chance encounter, became this passion towards language, a chance encounter with hypnosis and getting involved with NLP and copywriting, and how it was that it really became this personal transformation journey by going through hypnosis herself as a client, becoming more congruent as a human being in terms of how she interacts with other people, and even now as her own business owner, how it is she's constantly tweaking and testing the systems of her own business, and clearly based on the testimonials and stories you can see over on her website, truly helping a lot of great people along the way. So if you're brand new to hypnosis, be sure to listen all the way through this conversation, because Jessi is someone who is making this stuff work and diving in and embracing the fact that it not only doesn't have to be perfect, but even better, it shouldn't be perfect. People do business with people, and the reality is we just have to begin by showing up, being consistent, and actually interacting with our clients. And even for those of you that are perhaps already seasoned professionals and out there working and consistently seeing clients, chances are, the more I have conversations with people on your side of the equation, we often fall prey to this trap that we think we're doing everything right. We think we're doing everything, and yet the simplicity of the messaging. You know, this is why inside of Hypnotic Business Systems, we talk about you're only ever selling one thing. You're selling the next step. And Jessi mirrors that statement here in this conversation, because if you really look at what she's putting out there right now, everything is leading to one specific pathway to then build a conversation, conversations being the currency of our consulting services, and using that conversation to really start to build value in advance, really show a confidence and a belief system, not just in hypnosis, but a belief system in the fact that this person who is reaching out to you for help, you know you can help them, you believe you have the abilities to serve them, and that's really what inspires the action. You know what helps you to grow your business? Actually caring, actually being sincere, and stepping into, let's call it this way, a deserved sense of confidence. And the reality is, as you become the person who does this thing, you become more and more the person who does this thing. So I wanted to invite Jessi, as early as she is in her career, onto this program to kind of do a screenshot, to pull a capture of this specific moment in time, that sort of lightning in a bottle moment, as well as congratulate her on the success that she's had. But also I know this is a story, as this episode is coming out on Thanksgiving Day, that you're all going to be thankful for. See how we did that? For those of you outside of the US, though, happy November 25th. we'll celebrate as well. So as you're looking over the show notes, head over to worksmarthypnosis.com/352. Loading that website shortened URL, that will bring you over to the full show notes of this episode, where you can see the links in terms of how to connect with Jessi to find out more about her and possibly even work with her if that's a goal of yours too. While you're there as well, check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And there are senses of freedom inside of using frameworks, having a control of what actually has been proven to work to consistently bring clients in. That's what I teach. That's what I share. That's what Hypnotic Business Systems is all about. Which, by the way, when you're on that page, look at the little fancy floating footer that's on there, because that's an opportunity to watch a free on-demand presentation, 6 steps to a 6-figure hypnosis business. If you want a shortcut to that, that's over at jasonwebinar.com. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's no need to struggle. Model what works. Get out there. Help a ton of people. Don't have to be perfect. Just has to show up. You're going to hear that quote here in a moment. So here we go. This is episode number 352, Jessi McAnelly on Jumpstarting Success.
So my senior year of high school, actually, you know how you have those like life skills classes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in one of those classes, we had a little section where we did hypnosis in the class. Like just a recording, just a little self-hypnosis. And I thought that was really cool. I was a weird teenager who really enjoyed, trying to lucid dream and have out-of-body experiences. So this was right up my alley. And it always just stuck with me as something I enjoyed, playing with the mind and seeing how powerful it is. Later, I actually started a business sort of out of necessity. Just I don't really want to work just any job. So I started a business doing transcription. And over time, I started working with life coaches.
Yeah.
I ended up working with Elliot Rowe of Primed Mind.
Yeah.
He's a hypnotist. And that was great. I transcribed his podcast and a little bit of his hypnosis stuff. And I just got really into it. It started changing my life. I ended up hiring a hypnotist, making changes in my life. And I decided after my first session with a hypnotist, that's what I wanted to do. But it took me some years. It's been a few years. And over the pandemic, I just decided to go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Took a course and started a business.
Cool. There's a lot to unpack in just that last 60 seconds. So let's dive into this. No, because I'm curious. I've got to ask this. Here's a life skills class, which as we homeschooled as the pandemic kicked in, that we were not happy with the way the virtual school was running, and we figured 1 or 2 years we can do this. And there's always the phrase that we use around, oh, I wish they taught this in school. So like we did segments for our kids at 8 and 10 years old for cooking. And so like the kids will now wake up at 8 years old and make his own eggs, which is
that's great.
Amazing. And we did a section on finance because well, that's just not covered in the way that's actually real world.
Right.
So how did the hypnosis appear in a life skills class?
I don't remember anything else from that class except maybe doing some resume writing. And it was stuff like that, sort of how to interview for a job. And for some reason, I honestly don't remember. I just remember everybody laying on the floor in class and doing a hypnosis together. And I was super into it. I asked questions about it. They didn't really have anything to offer because it was just a recording.
Yeah.
I wish I remembered more about it. But yeah, it was just a one-off thing. Just one time in class, we did a hypnosis together.
That is so cool.
It was really cool. Yeah. It was for relaxation. I do remember that.
That's awesome. That's all. I've never heard that before in all these episodes.
Yeah.
I was expecting you to go into someone came to my school, like the grad night, and did the things. Like, no, my teacher played a hypnosis audio in the middle of class.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we need more of that.
Sort of non sequitur, but like I enjoyed it a lot. So it kind of stuck with me, I guess.
Now, what you mentioned around doing, transcription services, I had to laugh at that. I had a video guy for a while who would edit videos in the various courses that we have. And suddenly he sends me an email going, my brother was nervous about a job interview, so I hypnotized him to take down his anxiety and he got the job.
Oh,
I'm realizing
awesome.
This guy's never been trained technically, but then again, he's watched hundreds of
He's
hours of my
listened to you
videos.
so much. Exactly.
And it's like I mailed him an honorary certificate.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's so funny. Doing transcription, I ended up just absorbing. I mean, I literally listening and then literally typing out every single word that somebody says, and it starts to become an earworm. It gets in your brain.
Yeah. Well, are there segments that stood out to you that you can remember from doing the transcription of some of the hypnosis material?
You know, working with Elliot Rowe, giving him a shout out. He's awesome.
Yeah.
He worked with poker players. And it's a funny story how I started working for him. I was on Upwork, like most transcriptionists are, or anybody doing some freelance work like that. And it turns out one of the guys working for him who ended up hiring me, he's from the town I live in. And so we had this weird connection. I just started getting into playing poker. It's kind of, I don't know, strange the way the world works sometimes. And he works with poker players. So I just listened to him talking to poker players and their experience with working with him on hypnosis, like these top poker players in the world. It's crazy. And how they've tackled issues like self-belief and holding themselves back, or money issues even, and gambling issues and things like that, and overcoming those challenges through working on their mental game. And it really inspired me. I mean, I was sitting there in the background, just listening to all these famous poker players talk about the struggles they've had and how working on their mental game fixed them, made them disappear.
That is one of those amazing aspects, because when you suddenly realize there's a whole world to something that you didn't quite know was there.
Yeah.
I mean, the podcast episodes, the last two we did with Nathan Gist, he talks about working with day traders.
Oh,
And to
yeah.
see here's a whole culture around it. Here are the specific needs that they have. And, as some people would sometimes have the concern of, I don't know, there's not enough business to go around. It's like there's markets out there that no one is speaking to.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty crazy.
But to have that experience then of learning it sort of by, I don't want to say osmosis or diffusion, but somewhere in the neighborhood of that, what steps did you then take to then, let's say, get more of a formal training of it?
I had heard so much of this material, listening, like literally going through and transcribing his 7-day courses and stuff. So it all started to get in my mind. I actually ended up seeing a hypnotist for some personal issues, and she really helped me. It was amazing. We were still in touch some 5 years later. And I just started asking questions like, how do I do this? What would it take? You have to kind of build a business too. And I knew that. So I ended up doing Mike Mandel's course to kind
Yeah.
of get my foot in the door and just learn as much as I could about it. And then I realized I'm just going to have to do this. I'm just going to have to put myself out there. I'm going to have people come to me and actually do hypnosis on them. So I started doing that and realized, okay, this is actually awesome. I love this. And it's almost, I don't know, for lack of a better phrase, it's almost like a calling. You just feel like, oh, I want to do more of this. And that was about 6 months ago or so.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the Mike Mandel course, I wrote out, I want to be a professional hypnotist in 6 months, not actually expecting to meet that goal. And yet here I am 6 months later, I'm doing it. And starting the journey to doing that actually has been life changing. It's challenged all of my beliefs. It's made me a much more congruent person, much more confident, much more open minded to the possibilities of what I can do personally and how I can help people.
Well, you mentioned a moment ago that, kind of working with people and making that decision that, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to start seeing people. And you dove in right away, which is a big part as to why I invited you onto this program. We were chatting before we jumped on as to you're in one of the business groups that I run. And here's people who are asking, wait, what are you doing to get these clients? And you're there going, I'm just following the steps and I'm testing it out for myself. I'm actually using it. In those early days, is there a story of working with someone where it kind of surprised you what kind of result that it created for them? That you had your change with hypnosis, and now here you were as the practitioner. Is there a story of a time that stands out where even you were surprised as to what happened?
Yeah, I was a little afraid of doing stop smoking clients. And a friend of mine reached out to me over the summer as I was still going through a course, and she's like, I'm ready to quit. And what surprised me is actually how easy it is to tell whether somebody does want that change that they say that they want, and how they'll show signs ahead of time. She said, you know what? Today I cleaned out all my ashtrays and I threw away my cigarettes, threw away my vapes, and now I'm coming to you to make this happen. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, actually, you're making this super easy on me. So let's do it. Let's just solidify this as your decision. And it surprised me that 2 months later, when I checked in with her, she's like, I haven't had a single cigarette. And I realized how potent this is and
Yeah.
how I don't know. It's like, I tell people it's kind of the fire that stokes itself, because the more I help people, the more it helps me, the more I want to help people. And it just has been growing exponentially quickly, like way faster than I would have ever expected.
Yeah, you just said something there that we could probably do another 3 hours on, which is that as it's helping other people, it's also helping you. This is a big theme of my life. What does that specifically mean for you?
Well, a big part of it was getting started. I didn't feel confident at all. And there's still days where I feel like, what am I doing? Am I doing things right? And I had to just, I made some videos just as resources for clients. And I made a video and I looked at it. I was like, you know what? I kind of look dumb. The lighting's weird. And I just put it out there anyway. And really, I felt a relief. Like, oh, I did this. And now I don't have to have that fear of doing that thing. And it's gotten a lot easier just doing it the first time, just getting it out there. It doesn't really matter. You may get some comments or you may get some like thumbs down, but it just, what you put out there will speak to the right people.
Right. And when we embrace the fact that really every piece of content is actually meant to do two things. One is to attract in the people that you want, and
Hmm.
we'll throw in a modifier here to respectfully propel away the people you don't want.
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't need to be a fit for everyone out there. And, behind the scenes, I have an advertising agency that runs some of the things that fills our classes up, that helps out with the promotion of that. And the line is always, it's not a matter of what we think. We need to put it out there and see what people vote on by clicking.
Yeah.
So like right now, the one that looks the worst and I hate is, of course, the best
It's the one.
performing ad.
Well, yeah, because people, even if you are a hypnotist and you're a professional, people want to see that you're human and that
Right.
they can do it too.
Well, you mentioned, I want to go back to this point, though, about working with people and as they create the results. Would you say it's simply, and not just simply because this is profound, would you say that's simply the category of your confidence increasing, or is it kind of changing your perception as to maybe even some personal things that you've been holding on to?
Oh, yeah. It's not just like the pat on the back feeling. Like that's nice, but ultimately what's been a really big profound experience for me is I don't have to be perfect. I just have to show up. Like I just have to give it my full attention when I'm there, and then it sort of just happens naturally and I don't have to force it. I don't have to fake confidence. I don't have to fake anything. I just show up. And that's been a big lesson for me is confidence isn't so much something that I achieve, it's just something can step into.
Right. What you just said there about I don't have to be perfect, I just have to show up. I have videos that are 8 or 9 years old, 60, 70 pounds heavier, saying things that I don't believe anymore, still on the web. And the thing that's been a turning point is how people see what I'm putting out now versus the 10 years ago stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes part of the conversation. And this is true
Oh,
of my clients.
yeah.
This is true of people who are working with me in, consulting or even joining programs. That really is that key. We have to get started. We have to start to put that information out there. Otherwise, they're not going to find us.
It's true. It's very true.
So you mentioned about challenging beliefs as to, looking at how you kind of perceived things before. Would you say, you mentioned coming from, sort of freelance transcription,
Hmm.
what were some of those, let's say, barriers or perceptions that had to shift to now taking the service and offering out hypnosis?
Oh, a big one is trading time for money.
Yeah.
Providing a service like transcription, I'm basically getting paid time for money to contribute to somebody else's dream, which was great when I needed it. This is a lot different in that there's administrative stuff. I'm working on my website. I'm creating content. I'm following up with people either by phone or by email and checking in on them. It's not just about the time they spend in my office, but the holistic approach to from the second they hear about my name to when they click on my website to when they fill out the form and when we get on the phone, all of it from start to finish, they're paying for that experience, not for the hour to hour and a half of my time, because a whole experience is meant to be transformative, not just booking the session and showing up to the session and getting an hour of somebody's time. And that's a really big perspective shift for me, is seeing it differently, especially when pricing. When I first was, I remember the first phone call I had where I was like, oh, I finally got one. Oh, cool. This is awesome. And I was so nervous. And I actually ended up using your script. And at the end, I kind of lost my confidence. I was like, oh, yeah, and so this is what you get. And the price is this. And they're like, okay, when do you have availability? And I went, oh, that was way easier than I thought it was going to be, because it took just doing it and feeling extremely uncomfortable asking for the money I was asking for. And then to realize, actually, no, the perception of value on their end it's not, like I said, it's not just about the time that we spend together, but the whole experience. And you don't go to, say, tour on the Grand Canyon on donkeys and, balk at the
Oh, we'll figure out
whatever
where
the
we're going.
price is. Yeah, exactly. You understand that you're paying for the experience. And so that's one thing I would say about to anybody starting out is remember that you're providing a whole experience and not just time for money.
Right. Well, that's an important way to look at it. And that's a really cool way of phrasing it there, because I was on a call with someone this week who is coming from a career in massage therapy
Mhm.
and was drawing this correlation from one to the other. I'm like, well, you did put in all these years of training and education and 20 years plus experience as a massage therapist. Yet, let's not discount the hypnosis too much, because one, if we go too low, it's not going to be taken seriously, unfortunately.
Right.
So I'm okay. If anything, let's have you begin at the same rate. But it's the fact that really our sales call, you mentioned, what's in hypnotic business systems as the 500K phone process, because when it was published, it had generated more than $500,000 in individual client income. And that was published in 2014, by the way. So that number's slightly higher now.
Yeah, no
But
kidding.
it's a framework. I always have to, I'm the one who called it the 500K phone process, and everyone calls it a script. And here's the third of our population who gets angry when they hear the S word. It's like, no, it's an outline.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when we get to that point where the person says yes, there's this shift that occurs inside, that when you're the person who does the thing, you now become the person who does the thing. And we now know, if I run these steps, if I have these videos, if I have this information on my website, and what I think most people miss out on, and this is why they hide behind the direct response offer of call this number to book your sessions, here's how much they are. When we can do that process on the phone, that really isn't a sales process. It's presented as a sales process, but it's like the first third of your intake.
Right. Yes.
And that's where we're learning whether or not we want to take that client on, whether they're a fit for what we're about to do. But that also helps to inform everything we're going to do in that first session, right?
Absolutely. I actually ended up having a potential client. She was a little distracted in our phone call, and she emailed me yesterday. She goes, "Hey, can you send me some notes from that? Because I'm thinking a little bit harder, a little bit more clearly about what it is I want to do in our session." I was like, "Yes, absolutely." So I sent that over because I felt like, if she's not clear in our session, then we're not going to get the clarity that she's looking for. So pricing at where I price gives me the freedom to be able to give that kind of personal service where it's needed or where where it feels right to do so.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a huge point right there, that it allows us to provide that almost, as it's called, concierge level service, that this person is getting our full attention. This person is getting our full focus in that moment. This may have been a one-off experience. I'm curious, when you say the call was kind of distracted, what do you mean by that?
Oh, I think it started off well, and then I think she started doing dishes towards the end. I mean, I
Oh,
ended and
yeah.
that was totally fine. I like
Jessie, was that what she wanted to work on, though?
no, the
Okay,
dishes.
never mind then. Yeah. No, there's a segment. This is one of the things in the document library and hypnotic business about my email to phone call strategy, which is just that over the years, the person who would send the long email with a bunch of questions, and I would respond with a lot of long answers. And
Mhm.
the more back and forth we did, not to use the absolute, the more likely they would just never become a client,
Yep.
which is where we just adopted the strategy of here's a copy and paste message that sends them into a phone call. And I have a track record of, coming up with brilliant things. You're
Yes.
welcome.
Yes.
No, but then hearing other people say something, I'm going, you jerk, you said it better. I was at an event last month, and the line was, car calls are never sales calls. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, when I'm connecting with that client for the consult on Zoom and they're driving,
Mhm.
which simply becomes the, hey, you know what? I know this is important to you. So let's do this. Let's reschedule this at a time you can give it your full attention.
Yep.
And somehow, as much as that is not meant to be a takeaway sale, I've had one go, I'm going to pull over, I'm going to park, I'll call you back in 5.
Hey, yeah. I'm still in the experimental phase where I'm learning all the different kinds of calls I might get, and I thought that was really interesting. And I actually, after the call, I thought about you talking about that. So it's all a big experiment, right? Like no call is ever going to go perfectly. No session is ever going to go 100% perfectly. That's not the goal. The goal is to get the result and the change work, and to lead them in a certain direction. And it's not about being perfect or presenting yourself perfectly. It's kind of a dance almost, and you're experimenting to figure out what does and doesn't work for you. Um, Having a framework in place actually frees up a lot of mental space to be able to do that experimenting. So, thank you, Jason. No,
Oh, no. No, it's the benefit of the framework. Other people talk about it as having it as the control, that, okay, I've got this to begin with, and I'll call
exactly.
something out. Here's something that this is not against you in any way. Here's one of the things that I teach that's become like the thing that everyone is using. And you tested it in a slightly different way and found that's what's currently working for your
For me,
clients.
yeah.
And it's not to say one is right and one is wrong. Even in a hypnosis certification, last night we had class number 3 inside of Work Smart Hypnosis Live. And the setup was, just because I've been through this event more than you all have, from this point forward, there's going to be a ton of questions around the theme. Could I do it this way? Could I do it that way in terms of techniques for change? And the
Hmm.
answer ahead of time is always going to be, yes, you could. Test it out, see how it goes.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
We've got to make it our own.
Well, and admittedly, I don't have very much like videos on my website. I'm still working on putting all of that together. I'm kind of in the process of moving, so it's had to take a little bit of a back burner. But the most important thing I was going for was, what is my potential client going to experience by visiting my website? And it just doesn't really speak to anybody to be like, hi, I offer hypnosis services, hire me. I mean, like
Well,
you
that's why you put the word please at the end of
yeah,
that
please.
sentence.
Please. um, let's talk about that thing that I did. I had noticed that I was getting people to my website, to my Get Starting page, and then nothing. And I was like, okay, what could I do differently here? And so the small thing that I changed was, well, I'm going to try giving them a chance to talk about themselves first and their issue. and giving them a forum to get it out and out of their head and somewhere without actually having to pick up the phone to call, and just letting them fill out a form that they can start to talk about their issue. And I think within 2 days, I got 3 leads, which for me, I had nothing up till that
Right.
point.
Yeah.
And all I keep doing is making small tweaks. If I see a dead end somewhere on like analytics, I just go and say, I want to look at this like I'm a client. What could I do differently? And just make the change that I think a potential client, like, or me as somebody looking for hypnosis services, what would I want to see whenever I visit a website? And my website's not perfect. It's out there and I keep making changes to it. And that's all you can really do. And figure out what works for you and your audience. And it's it's awesome. It's starting to work. It's really starting to work. It's cool.
Well, the beauty is, and just to kind of walk through what you had done differently there, is that in my systems, it's a calendar application where they answer the questions and you just made it a form. And I'm
Mhm.
assuming then once they fill out the form, then you're reaching out to them,
Yep,
correct?
that's
Yeah,
exactly it. Yep. So
which
it's the same
is,
thing, just looks ever so slightly differently.
yeah. And it is basically the same process. It's a matter of which one's going to work. It's like, the equation as to what's the most effective exercise, the one you're actually going to do.
Yep.
And over time, this is where the game can become, as now the calendar is booked up full. Now we can start to play with the systems and intentionally make it more work for someone to get to us, which then makes it so only those high level people, those highly motivated, are actually getting to us. But this is a podcast about hypnosis. So we should talk hypnosis too at some point, though we technically have been. Have you kind of gone into a specific series of, let's say, client issues that you're the most excited to work with? Or what is it that you're mostly seeing these days?
Right now I have a lot of stop smoking clients, and that's been really, really cool. I'm one of those people that enjoys that remedial change work, like somebody saying, I'm really stuck. I feel like I'm stuck. And I love that because I was that person stuck, feeling like I'll never get out of where I was. And so I really enjoy watching people, their faces change. So they're like, oh, and you can see that their perspective has shifted. I enjoy helping people get unstuck out of like anxiety or behavior patterns, things like that, of that nature.
Would you say that you're finding there's a consistent through line of these people, even if it's different client goals, that it's kind of a similar story in terms of where they are and why they want to achieve it at that specific point in their life?
Yeah. A lot of it has been self belief, particularly feeling like they're kind of going at it alone, and they just want a little bit of help, and maybe even a little, it helps to have somebody believe in them and believe that they can totally do it. And I'm actually super psyched to play that role. It's great.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about a little while ago is coming from a career where more freelance, doing transcription work.
Mhm.
People are always interested to hear not only that story, as you thankfully shared, but also how it kind of prepared you. Would you say, not to lead, was there a fascination with words, with language that came to that? Well, let's kind of rewind it back further. What was it that got you into the transcription?
It was about 8 years ago. I decided I moved to a new town. My life was a mess. I'll just be honest. My life was a total mess. I wanted something different. I was working like restaurant jobs, whatever I could get, and I was going, you know what? I don't like this. This isn't who I am. I want to do something different. So it was sort of born out of, I want to feel independent and more in control of what my work life is like. And so I started doing transcription and then became really fascinated with language, and actually started reading about NLP and how changing the way you talk can change your life. That idea just totally fascinated me. And I learned a lot about how not to run a business whenever I did
Yeah.
transcription. And I started just taking whatever projects came in. And this is a really big lesson I learned from that I've taken over to starting a hypnosis business is you don't want to take everybody that comes to you necessarily. And by sort of filtering out and filtering in the kinds of projects you like working on. So, like I said, I enjoyed working with life coaches. I just decided this makes me feel good whenever I do this work rather than boring business meetings or really awful recording quality. I got really granular with what I like to work with. And it wound up being that I got clients that paid me better, that liked working with me. I enjoyed doing the content that they had as well. And the nice benefit now is I have all of those people in my network as I'm becoming a hypnotist because I focused for so many years on a specific market and
Right.
filtered out over time the kinds of projects I didn't enjoy doing and really kind of got to know myself as somebody being a freelancer doing work for other people. Figure out what you enjoy and what kinds of clients you like working with. And it's okay to let go of the others.
That is a huge thing. And, especially as we get deeper into our career, we have a right to kind of pick the things that we specifically do the best. We have a, home project that we're doing sometime in December, which is a very specific electrical thing that needs to be resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And to get to know the guy who now owns the company that does this, he put it to go, what I did about 20 years as being the general electrician. Or I'd come in and it'd be everything from this
Mm-hmm.
breaker needs to be replaced, this light needs to be replaced. They're doing an add-on and I need to be hired as a subcontractor to come in. And he goes, and we'll call it out. These are like the LED lights that can go outside of your house. And as I'm looking at that and going, we'll never put up Christmas lights again. Let's do this. 25-year warranty, I'm in. And we did it on the backyard around the pool, rough life. He actually said, he goes, I spent 25 years doing very important work to make sure people's lights were on. I now, at this point, I'll use his words, sorry, I only want to do frivolous shit that makes people happy. Like, thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like,
Yeah.
Here's a guy who has done his career and has now fallen into it. I mean, I've said this playfully. I've heard others people say similar things. I began as the guy working with kids and teenagers. And then I had my own. And I see yours a lot less now as a result of that. But that's kind of what we want. We want, we go to the dentist because they're the doctor who decided to look at teeth.
Exactly.
And if something's wrong the other side of our body, we go to the podiatrist because they wanted to look at feet and fix issues with feet. So we want someone who can step into that specialty, and especially to have a philosophy of the world. And if we align with them, that's where now, not just from a sales perspective, we're selling ourselves into the result even deeper.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So then you mentioned changing up an application as to how people get to you. What is working for you right now in terms of bringing people in?
So what's working is having a little form on my website just to give people the chance to start to talk about their issue. And there's no commitment there. It's just they send it off to me and I send them a little email back saying, hey, great. Yeah, it looks like you want to work on this issue. I can help you with that. Let's get on the phone. And then I talk with them on the phone. And I'm not going to lie, Jason, like every person I've gotten on the phone, I've been able to book.
Nice.
And
congrats on that.
yeah, and I have a small sample size right now because I'm just getting started, but that alone, knowing that I have a structure in place, tweaking my structure has been helping me get the clients in that I want to work with.
Well, I'd say, based on this conversation so far, the embracing that, really it's about connecting with another person. And the goal is, we're technically in the coaching and consulting industry, and that's where conversations are the currency.
Mm-hmm.
So building that roadmap where now people are getting into that conversation with you, and that's why they're becoming your clients, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody just on the client end of this business, what they really want is to know that somebody cares about the results they're getting. And so what I'm finding is working is from start to finish, them feeling like I actually care about them and in the process. And I don't know how it's going to evolve over the coming years. How am I to know that? But I just know that what has been working is having a clear process in place. So they go to
Yeah.
my website and everything says, go to the get starting page to get started. There's no sending them off over here to check out this or that or this or that. It's everything leads down to the same place. And it makes it very clear about what my process is to get started. And I think that that has instilled a lot of confidence in anyone visiting my website and taking those next steps. Is it's very clear what this process is going to look like.
That sounds extremely simple, yet what you hit on there is something massively critical, that we buy into something emotionally and financially
Mhm.
because we feel comfortable with it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I didn't intend this to be a big moment years ago, but same way I answer most of my calls once we begin is I kind of set the stage.
Yeah.
Hey, so the way that this obviously works is we'll talk about what your goals are and why you're calling me. I'll explain what hypnosis is, and we've got plenty of time if you've got questions for me. And then only if I'm confident that I can help you out, I'll explain how soon we can get started. Make sense? And someone in that moment actually said, we're like 45 seconds into the call, and she goes, "That's good. How much is it? I'm ready."
Yeah,
Like, what do you mean?
exactly.
And it's not to put someone else down, but she called a few others, and one was the, yeah, um,
Am I calling the right place? Yeah.
is this the hypnosis place? No, hang on,
Oh.
mom. Or, just the fact that it was not control from like a, pejorative way of saying it. It was just this matter of fact. Hey, here's how we do
Here's how it
this.
works.
Right. And what you just mentioned there is the power of just what we look at as next step marketing. I had to wrangle someone in the other week who had like 15 different offers on their site, and none of them were working. It's like you need to get one thing working and make that effective before we start to play with others.
Yeah,
So if
exactly.
people aren't yet calling you, no, that's not the time to then put 20 different MP3s for sale on your site.
Right.
There's a sequence to this.
I'm learning that it's better to keep it simple. Don't try to do everything at once. That's a big deal too. Don't try to do it all. Focus on having a simple through line to get people to your office. And you don't need anything fancy. You don't even need fancy lighting or fancy equipment at all. You can just have, if it's the message is clear and you are speaking to what it is that they want to accomplish, and you instill that confidence in that you can help them, then it's kind of a no-brainer for them to follow that sequence, right? If it's very clear we walk down this path to get that result, then it just kind of clears away all the crap, like all the noise, and makes
Yeah.
it very simple for them to know what it is that's going to happen. The more clarity you can give them in what it is, not even so much what you offer, but what their experience is going to be like, then one, it makes it simple for them, but two, it makes it simple for you. Like, just have a road to that gets you to that get started page or that call now page.
Mhm. So I have a bit of praise along with a question, which I am now editing in my head to go, how can I ask this without leading very heavily? And I think that's the only way to appropriately do it. The reason I reached out to you and said, let's have you on this podcast is that you've been a member of my hypnotic business systems community for a little while
Mhm.
now. And the way that that program is traditionally sold is that it's a lifetime access, even if someone signs up on a installment plan in terms of the payment setup of that, which means there's people in that private community. There's more than 1,000 people in the program around the world. Not everybody does Facebook groups, but the fact that we have like 700 active members is pretty cool.
Mhm.
But what I was noticing is, hey, here's this brand new person who is, what's the professional term? Getting shit done and not making excuses. And I loved watching the dynamic of people who have been in hypnosis now for several years that were then asking you for advice.
Yeah.
And it's not to say it's because you were following what I was, but you've been sending me a lot of polite messages along the way, thanking me. So thank you for that. I was going to ask you if you can kind of unpack how you've approached the material, how you've approached the startup differently. What can we model out of your story? Because I see, and this is not to pat on my back, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So I did not grow up with this belief system that it's going to be hard and most small businesses fail. I watched my parents, who were wedding photographers, set up the biggest bridal show display at all these bridal show events, get out there and market, get out there and give talks, and they made it happen. And, they were stopping people in their tracks, having conversations. And here were the other photographers sitting behind a table waiting for someone to come over and speak to them. So we have to take that active role. And that's what I grew up watching and went, that's how you start a business. Let me just do that. What would you say was your secret sauce that made this happen?
Well, realizing that if I want to do this, the person who has to get this done is me. And also, like, there have been times when I've been like, am I doing this right? Should I be doing it this way? Like, it's not that I haven't had my questions. I've just put it out there and then gone, all right, now it's time to analyze it. So I stopped analyzing as I was doing something was a big part of it. Just, all right, turn that part of my brain off. That's not what we're doing here right now. What we're doing here is getting a goal done. And I didn't wait till it was 100% perfect. I waited till it was about, 75, 80%. All right, this feels pretty good. And starting to put things out there, even to my website. Like, where I started was just take in as much information as I can and then go, okay, what do I think might work to start with first? And for me, it was getting a website up there and having just somewhere for people to go. And it was pretty quickly that I got that up. I went and made my own graphics and stuff because I like that creative side of it. So I don't even think you need all that. You don't need all the super branding and all of that. I just made everything match. You can just make things match and it'll work. Starting with having a place for people to go. I'll be honest, I don't know yet how to do Facebook marketing. I don't know yet how to do Google Ads. All of that is still foreign to me. But where I started was having a place for people to go and being able to tell people this is my website. And again, focusing on making that process super clear, like from homepage, cool, yeah, this is what I offer, to get started here. And everything there leads to that get started. That's the biggest focus I think a person could have as they're getting started.
Yeah, clarity of message, make the pathway very simple, and remembering that confusing doesn't sell.
Right. Yes.
It's where every page, and you've done this great, that every page is like, here's what to do next. And that's what it ought to be. Hey, speaking of which, there's a natural segue. How can people find out more about you? How can they get in contact with you?
Yeah. Well, you can visit my website. It's Moon Hypnosis, MOON hypnosis.com. And that's actually the best place to reach me. My phone number's there. My Get Started page, the form you fill out is all on there.
Well, cool. Well, congratulations for everything that you've got up and running. And I'm sure there's even more of it coming down the pathway as well. And we're all looking forward to seeing it. And especially I'm looking on the site at the moment now of, testimonials rolling in. So clearly doing great work and helping a lot of great people. Any final thoughts for the listeners out there?
I say just put yourself out there, even if it seems like the scariest thing. It's only scary until it's actually out there. And then you can do all the analysis and be like, oh, I could have done that differently. But just do it. Just do it. And it may feel scary to do something new, like putting a video out there or making a website with your name on it. But you're not going to get anything until you do, so you might as well just put it out there and then make all the adjustments you need later, because it's easy with technology these days.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for interacting with this program. Thank you for leaving your reviews online, as well as, saying nice things to the people who come onto this program as a guest. So check out the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com/352. That's where you can see how to connect with Jessi. And while you're there as well, join our bustling and successful community over at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. Model what works, use formulas that have been proven to be effective, and get the support from a massive international online community of fellow professionals in our industry. Check that out, hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. Make it rain, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.
Hey, it's Jason here, and I want you to be the first to find out as we upload new content here online. So do this right now. Click subscribe right next to this video, and you will be the first to find out as I share further resources, further downloads, and other really cool things to come your way. See you soon.